Welcome to Help, I Have Kids. I'm your host, Pam Marshall, a mom of 5 and a pediatric occupational therapist with over 35 years experience. This podcast is designed to equip you with practical tools, insights from experts, and real-life stories. Because at the end of the day, you are the head of your child's care team. Each week, you'll hear from pediatric experts and fellow moms like you that will help build your confidence. They'll offer clarity and empower you to make informed decisions that work for your whole family. Hi, moms. Welcome back to Help, I Have Kids. This is a special episode today for all you moms, either with very little newborns or friends you may know about to have a newborn, or maybe you're expecting. This episode is for you. So I'm introducing my friend Kelly here.
Hello.
She's a pediatric occupational therapist, now a doctor of occupational therapy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so we're excited to talk to her today because she specializes in babies and little ones and sensory and kids with neurologic impairment. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk today about torticollis. And so let's start at the beginning. Talk about what is torticollis.
To really simplify it, torticollis is just a big fancy way of a tight neck muscle. Mm-hmm. Typically, it's your sternocleidomastoid, which is a muscle that just connects kind of from here and comes down and wraps around. So if you think about like turning your head, mm-hmm. tilting your head, it's the muscle that controls all of those movements.
It does all that.
Yes.
And how does a mom know her baby might have a tight neck? And we're talking usually newborns mm-hmm. or in the first couple months of life, usually.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really hard to pick up on because there's so many things that you're paying attention to, and there's mm-hmm. so many things that are a little more important, like sleeping, feeding, those kinds of things.
Filling the diaper.
Yes.
You want both kinds happening in the diaper.
Absolutely. So a lot of times parents don't even notice it at first. Yeah. It's somebody looking at pictures or a pediatrician brings something up, but really it's maybe your baby is always hanging here, or, I always have to carry my baby a certain way because they get really fussy if I hold them the other way, and they don't really know why, but a lot of times it's our head is just there and we just naturally hold them one way because they get super fussy another way.
So, how common is it for parents to not be aware? So, if they show up and they've been referred by their physician and you see them for the first time, what's that like?
I think a lot of my parents are kind of shell-shocked a little bit because also pediatricians may send a referral in and they're just like, oh, go do this, and they don't necessarily understand why. So a lot of times they're coming in and they show up and they're like, my pediatrician sent me here. I'm not even entirely sure why. So then we start kind of talking about positional preferences, maybe feeding issues that turn into positional preferences, just different things like that. So
and their baby's sitting on your lap like this?
Yep, like this, and we're talking, and it may be like have you ever noticed that your baby only looks one direction, or they don't like to move their head, and I'm holding baby and their head's like this, and you're like, no, not really, until you start pointing it out, which, like we said, there's so many other more important things to be paying attention to.
Yeah, there is. But parents, why we want to educate you and why we're talking about this is we know years and years of being therapists that the earlier it's detected, the earlier you notice it, and the quicker you're able to get your baby in, the shorter the amount of therapy your baby has to have and the shorter time you have to spend doing the right things to correct it. It's the difference between if a baby comes in early and we get them before, at least by the 2-month mark, that's a much shorter treatment than if we get them at 6 months. Now you're talking 6 months to a year of treatment.
Absolutely.
And if you get them early, it might only be 6 to 8 sessions of treatment.
It makes a huge difference.
Huge
it really
difference, yeah. And so what can a mom do? Or let's back up even before that. When does a baby get torticollis, or how do they get torticollis? Because you can get it 2 different ways. So talk about that.
Well, a lot of times it can happen in utero just from how baby's positioned in there. I mean, we don't have control over, the size of our uteruses or anything like that. And all of that can vary. And so if baby is always stuck on their left side in utero and they don't really have enough movement or enough space
room.
to kind of move around, then they are just stuck there. So then all of that as they're developing in utero can start to lead to early tension before they're even born.
And hopefully if that happens, the medical staff, if you deliver, at a hospital, they should notice the baby has torticollis at that point, that it's positional. And the other kind is positional out of the womb. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Yep. So a lot of times, one of the biggest things I see is our hand dominance preference. When I'm feeding a baby, they are almost always subconsciously in my left arm, and I'm feeding with my right hand because I'm right hand dominant. Yeah. So sometimes we can almost cause it in a way, but not intentionally, if that makes sense. It's just the easiest thing to do. So.
We always change the diaper with the head to the left, and you put them in the crib, their head to the left. You put them in the crib the same way all the time, or the bassinet, or wherever they're sleeping.
We spent $5,000 to make their nursery beautiful, and their crib stays in the same place, and baby isn't moving yet. So the wall's over here, and everything else in their room's over here. So we want to see mom that's over here all the time.
So that's a great prevention tip, is think about which baby. I always teach parents, which side do they orient to? Meaning, which side are they going to look to see you? So can you make that variable in their day? Meaning, where you put them. I don't know, I always used little bouncer seats when they were really little that had this soft sling back cloth, so it wasn't a hard plastic thing. And I might sit that on the counter while I'm cooking. So can you make sure you put them on the left side of you, or, whatever, switch it up. Can you switch which way you put them in the bassinet? So sometimes their head's to the left and sometimes their head's to the right. And can you switch that up?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Can you switch up even how they're positioned, in their car seat? Because sometimes we get into routines and we position the car seat a certain way when we bring them in the house, and all those things, just where we lay them, where we put them, if we always talk to them in the same position or put them in the same arm, remembering to switch.
Yeah.
And that's one way you can prevent it. So they're orienting to both sides. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, because babies are visual. They like to follow you and look at you.
Yes.
So there is a connection between this torticollis, the stuck neck, and a flat head. And there's a big name for the flat head. Tell us about that.
So the big fancy term is plagiocephaly or brachiocephaly if it's more so in the back. But that connection is once you have that tight muscle, so if you kind of think about it and do it with me, and you say the left side of your neck is tight and you're always looking this way, well, then that means baby's left side of their head is always going to be down on whatever surface or in contact on that same point. And where they don't have all of the musculature to be able to move out of that position, or it's harder because that muscle is so tight, the bones of their brain aren't formed and sutured together yet. So then as that develops, you're constantly having pressure here. And so this side is all developing appropriately. And then where that contact point is just going to be flatter.
Yeah. And it gets flat. If you kind of think of it this is a funny analogy, but have you ever had an orange sitting on your counter and it rots and you pick it up and that rotting part is flat?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it is.
That's a perfect visual, yeah.
It's it gets flat, just like that orange. And I think this is also very, very preventable, but what makes it more prominent is in the last, I'd say 15, 20 years. I've been a therapist now, 6 years now. That's crazy to say that. I think 36. That, a lot of more plastic containers have been developed. So a lot of your containers that your baby sleeps in are those little rocking they all have different names, but it used to only be like the car seat and the swing were the plastic things. Now we have all these other contraptions, and when a baby's constantly in something plastic, it is a harder surface than like a mattress, or years ago, lots of people used pack and plays or just putting them on a carpeted floor or whatever. So I think that contributes to it being we call it in the therapy world, container syndrome, because babies are just spending so much time in a container, in a car seat. That's why as a mom, I raised 5, and it was my personal goal to never have a flat head, to have a beautiful round shaped head based on, but I also knew it was good for development. It wasn't just that I cared about them getting a flat head, that would look funny or something. That's not why I did it. It was more because I knew I was promoting good development.
Right.
And that's the reason behind it. You want to promote good development and not constantly be in those plastic containers.
Yeah.
It's a little harder if your baby goes to daycare. We understand the constraints of that. But there are more daycares, and it's something you can absolutely request or maybe even gift the daycare. Is they have a lot of mats or matted surfaces where babies are spending more time down on the floor, which is good. Another thing I love teaching moms is if you're home with your baby, think about just putting them down wherever you go. So like what I would do is when I go to the laundry room, I would take the baby with me, especially when you have older kids running around the house and you're not sure exactly what they might do.
Kids, dogs, cats.
Right. All of the above.
Yes.
You gotta protect, my 5th one, I was just like, can I just keep him alive? Can I just keep him alive, literally. So I would just take him with me, just so I knew he was safe. But I would do something like lay a towel in the bottom of a laundry basket and lay him in it.
Yeah.
And it's not bad just to put them down on the ground wherever you are. We have this thing about germs, or it's not safe, or it's too hard, or whatever. Really, actually, no, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just put them down right next to you. That's one way to keep them safe. And also, you're promoting better development that way.
I tell my families that the floor is my favorite tool.
It is. It really is, wherever you go.
Yes.
And using the cloth sling back little bouncers the first 4 months or so of life, that's really a good tool too, because it's soft and it shapes their head and they can look easily both ways. And you can also, or used to be able to, I don't know if you still can, I would stand on it and stretch it up if I wanted it to come up a little higher, or if you wanted it back a little, I would just bend it where I wanted it.
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
it goes.
You can't do that with the plastic ones, so.
No, you can't at all. When does a mom seek help? What do they do? Like if they notice, I think my baby's got a flat head, or, I think my baby, I think their neck is stuck. What should they do? Should they wait for an appointment? Should they seek help right away? What should they do?
I am a firm advocate, and I will die on the hill. The earlier, the better. And your mama gut is 99% of the time right.
Yes,
so if you're noticing it as a mom, voice that to your pediatrician so then they can get you to us to help, because you know what you're talking about.
100%.
So the earlier, the better. I'd always just go talk to your pediatrician, express the concerns, and push for that early referral, because the worst thing we're going to do is say, nope, I think you're good. Or maybe you come in and we give you like a little HEP and we check back in a month, and more than likely you'll probably be fine. So,
and I'll translate HEP, home exercise program. So it's things you do at home to help.
Yeah.
So as a mom, I would pick up the phone and just ask to talk to a nurse, and just say, I'm really concerned. And maybe they have a way you can send a picture in or something. I don't know. Rather than having to do a whole nother appointment. But if you can get sort of a nurse appointment and get them to go ahead and facilitate that referral, that's great. That's really helpful. And then for plagiocephaly, that flat head, let's talk about like severity of it, treatment of it. when a child needs a helmet, when a child doesn't. I'm sure most moms out there have seen a baby somewhere with a helmet because it's more
cute.
common. They're pretty cute. And it is more common now, especially all the back to sleep. There have been quite a few babies who have had very significant flat heads. And so let's talk about like the ears and the severity of the brachiocephaly and, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So one of the first things we do is when we're looking at the head shape is obviously we visually look at it first, but we do have a way to measure it in the clinic. But we're also looking at like facial asymmetries. So eye level, ears shifting up and down, maybe one's a little forward versus the other. So we're looking at all of those things. And once again, same with the torticollis, we go back to positioning first, because the more that you can keep them off of the spot that's flat, then the quicker it's going to fix itself almost. But then there's kind of like a range when we measure in clinic, and that kind of tells us of, okay, positioning, if we keep doing this, we're on the right track, or we may be kind of past the point and we may need a little extra help and refer you to get a helmet.
Right. And there's quite controversy around, do you use a helmet or do you not? Does it really work? Does it not work? And does it impact jaw development in the future? What does it look like when your child's 30 years old or 40 years old? How does that impact?
So for me, I always tell my families that I think there's a lot of misconception about what the helmet does and kind of how it's made. So I think a lot of families, they think you put this helmet on and wherever the flat spot is, the other side's really tight and it's like pushing their head to make this side protrude more almost. And that's not the case whatsoever. You have that helmet and there's almost like that open space there, and there's a little bit of contact on the other side, but it's not like pushing. It's almost just more of like a wall. If you think of almost kind of like a plant growing towards light, it's like, okay, so this side of the helmet's going to be dark and the light's over here. So this side's just going to develop a little more. I think there's also a lot of misconception of, oh, this helmet's too heavy and my baby's not going to be able to lift their head and develop the way that they're supposed to. And I've never seen that in my 10 years of practice. They may be a little uncomfortable at first because you're putting a helmet on them. And so that's something that they have to get used to. But most of your babies are going to start in their helmet 23 hours out of the day. So they get desensitized to it pretty quickly.
Right. I've heard older adults that had undiagnosed or untreated plagiocephaly talk about how frustrating it is they can't wear a hat, or there's just things, or they do have jaw. Some people have jaw because the misalignment, they have jaw problems and pain from that shift. And so those are things to think about.
Yeah. And it's not, it does go past the just cosmetic look of things. I mean, as females, typically with longer hair, it's not as noticeable from outward appearance, but like you said, things like putting on a hat, or if your jaws are asymmetrical and you're trying to chew, then you get a lot of that like clicking and popping. And by the time you're 30, 35, there's not really much you can do to fix that because you are developed the way you're developed.
It's very true. And you don't know like when if it's a boy, more so than girls, young men tend to lose their hair faster. And you don't know when somebody's going to go bald. Yeah. And now they have to deal with this misshapen bald head. That's pretty hard. And they're probably going to want to wear a hat all the time. And, you think about things like that. But it is one of those tough love things that it is a choice. It's a parent's choice whether they want to pursue a helmet or not. Clinically, there are measurements that indicate a helmet is warranted and when a helmet is not. So not everybody is recommended a helmet. Right. So just know that. If you catch it early enough, that wouldn't be necessary. But I think, the moms and families who choose helmets, it's tough love because it's hard.
It is.
To keep your baby in that 24/7, especially when it's hot and sweaty and
they just
at night.
They don't smell great either because they're on for so long. And it's just, I think that's another like shell shock to some families. Yes, they're like, oh my gosh, this thing stinks. And I'm like, comparing it to a cast is perfect because I try to think of all of those little nuances that will come up later, just to try to get them as prepared as possible. Because it is, like you said, it's a tough decision, and you feel bad. You feel like you're trapping your baby in something. But
and how long do most children have to wear a helmet if they're?
I've had most of my families anywhere from that like 3 to 6 month mark. I mean, 6 months, we're talking it was pretty severe that parent could look at baby and be like, why is my baby's head flat over here? So, but I mean, they're pretty effective, especially if you're following the wear time protocol. So
the best thing you can do is act early.
Yes.
Spread the word to all your mom friends. Anybody you know having a newborn, make sure they're acting early.
Absolutely.
If their baby's neck is stuck or their head is misshapen, is really flat. Because the stuck neck leads to the flat head most of the time.
And then thinking about like gross motor development from there, if your neck is stuck and you have your flat head and you're always looking this way, you're probably going to roll the way you're looking. So it can just impact so many different things. The earlier, the better.
Can. And the way the skull is, this is probably something you've never had a conversation with anyone about baby's skull, but it's miraculous that there's plates, there's different sections of the skull that as a newborn, that's how they get through the birth canal. That skull collapses and gets smaller. And we all know just by watching a baby develop, the size of their head between when they were a newborn to 1 year old is unbelievable how big their head goes from a little bitty head to a very large head.
Yeah.
And that's miraculous how much it's growing and changing. And when do those plates close up, or when do those suture lines close up?
Typically by a year.
Yep. Which is, again, the earlier the better, because you really can't do much the closer to a year you get. So hope that information is super helpful to you all, and reach out to your pediatrician. And I know in our practice at Marshall Pediatric Therapy, we do prioritize babies getting in and getting the help they need the younger they are. So reach out and seek occupational therapy or physical therapy, and the training that a therapist, let's talk about that a little bit. How would a mom know, does this therapist really know how to treat this? Because you can't go to just anybody.
Right. Well, luckily for you all at Marshall Pediatric Therapy, our intake coordinators and everybody that you talk to on the front end before getting to us keeps track of all of that for you. So it's really nice.
Right.
But if you're just talking and asking questions, I would ask for somebody, one that specializes in infants, but then also has experience with torticollis plagiocephaly.
Correct.
Because infant feeding is very different than torticollis and plagiocephaly. So just
it is.
Asking to make sure, or like asking, okay, you said I'm going to be with this therapist, like what kinds of things do they treat and work on?
And there's oftentimes, there are kids in a small percentage, there's feeding problems and torticollis and plagiocephaly, all that's going on at the same time.
Yeah.
So, in that case.
Which is why you need the right therapist to be able to tease through all of those things.
It is, because sometimes babies get referred for feeding, and actually then we're discovering, they have torticollis, which is also contributing to the feeding problem. And,
it all ties together.
All goes together. Yeah. And we do work with other professionals like chiropractors, and we also know infant massage. That also really helps.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things that can help your baby. So Kelly, you've been a wealth of information, and thank you for coming on today.
Of course.
And it's a gift, moms, that you have a team of people out there waiting to help you. You don't have to do this alone. So if anybody listening now, and some of you may not be in our area, near our practice, wherever you are, you can seek out your physician to help you get referred to a pediatric occupational therapist or a pediatric physical therapist who can treat your baby quickly. And most of the time it is covered by insurance. There's a whole episode on insurance if you want to go listen to that. But our new episodes come out every Wednesday, and we hope you'll come back and have a listen. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to Help, I Have Kids. If you're tuning into this podcast, that means you're a mom who's curious, committed, and ready to learn. And we see you. We'd love for you to join our Help I Have Kids Facebook community, where moms just like you are connecting, asking questions, and encouraging each other every day. It's a space for real conversations, expert insight, and support from moms who get it, because we're all in this together. And if you know a mom who's feeling unsure or maybe overwhelmed, or just needs to be reminded that she can do it, she can advocate for her child with confidence, share this episode with her. We're building a village here, and we're glad you're a part of it.